Yes, guys, welcome back to the MMA Sucka podcast. It's been a while, about 8 months, I think, since the last podcast. I think the last podcast, ironically, was when Ilia Topuria knocked out Max Holloway. That's the last podcast that I did. And yet here I am again. Max Holloway's next fight. Going to break it down for you guys. I'm going to strive to continue the podcast now on a more regular basis, hopefully weekly. If not, it might be a 2 week break, but keep it locked to the MMA Sucka YouTube channel and to the Twitter. I'll let you know as and when episodes will be coming out. I'm going to try and get more guests on the show to talk about, the goings on in the world of MMA and obviously in boxing. I'm going to try and do more interviews, get a couple of guys and girls on for interviews on the MMA Sucka channel. And I'm going to try and be more consistent. It's difficult because I'll be completely honest, my love for the UFC and for MMA as a whole, but for the UFC in particular, has dwindled a little bit. I still watch every single fight card, but with fight cards like we had, Lewis versus Teixeira, I don't care about that. If this fight, this week's pay-per-view, in my opinion, is a fight night pay-per-view with a blockbuster headline, which is why it's pay-per-view. Like I said, I'm going to try and be more consistent. This is the first episode of the new era of the MMA Sucka podcast. So bear with me, guys. I'm still a little bit rusty. I'm still going to, maybe take a little bit of time to get back into it. My setup is still, I'm still having to set everything back up. But UFC 318 goes down this weekend. Dustin Poirier versus Max Holloway for the BMF belt. The belt is what it is. Yeah, the BMF is it's a gimmick belt. It's fun. It is what it is. What I'm happy about is that the poster looks really cool. I'll try and share my screen quickly now. Um, yeah, the poster. Okay, I don't think that's working. Desktop 2, get rid of Zoom. Is that going to work? No, Google Chrome. There we go. The poster. The poster looks really cool. I like this poster. This is a cool poster. Finally, we get a good poster. But it's not about the poster. It's about the fight, isn't it? Let's be honest. These two are and do embody that BMF, that baddest mother effer title. Anytime, anywhere, any place, these two guys are those guys. Max Holloway, obviously, Hall of Fame worthy featherweight without a doubt. In his career, when he's moved up to lightweight, he's gone 1-1. One of those losses came at the hands of Dustin Poirier. And one of the wins, his only win at lightweight in the UFC, has come at the hands of himself. That brutal, brutal knockout of Justin Gaethje at UFC 300, which is what actually won him the BMF belt, which is kind of ironic. But it's Dustin Poirier's last ever fight in the UFC. He hangs up his gloves after what will be when he makes it will be his 40th walk at 36 years old, 40 walks to the octagon. Not all in the UFC, but he's a legend of WEC. He's a USA MMA guy back in the day, Louisiana regional scene. He had a 6-0 amateur, sorry, a 7-0 amateur career. He's been around the block. He has been around the block, and he's had wars in there as well. In He's had wars in the octagon as well. Let's look at Max Holloway first, though. Max Holloway comes into this fight off the back of what is only the second finish loss of his career. And ironically, the first finish loss of his UFC career came against none other than Dustin Poirier in his debut. Now, he took that fight on short notice, his debut in the UFC. He was 4-0 at the time. It was back in, just got Tapology up here, 2012. So 13 years ago. How much can we read into that? Very little. The two men have fought since at UFC 236. Holloway took the fight on short notice. If you remember, it's supposed to be Dustin Poirier versus Khabib Nurmagomedov for the undisputed title. The interim title was put on the line for that one, and Dustin Poirier won via unanimous decision. It was a close fight. We'll go on to talk about that fight in a little bit. But Max Holloway, like I said, coming off the first knockout loss of his career down at featherweight, it was to Ilia Topuria, who we know hits like an absolute train. Ilia Topuria knocks out Charles Oliveira in the first round. He knocked out Max Holloway in the third round. He knocked out Volkanovski. He knocks almost everybody out that isn't named Josh Emmett. Impressive. But how does that knockout loss affect Max Holloway? It's the first time he's ever been knocked out in his career. Now, we don't know, he was showing concussion-like symptoms back in the day, but he's never actually been knocked out in his UFC career or in his MMA career. He's got an MMA record of 26-8, so he's had 34 fights, never been knocked out. How does that affect him psychologically? How will he enter this fight? Going back up in weight now to 155, he said he's done with featherweight as a whole. He's now a career 155er from here on out. I think Max Holloway's best weight is 155. He's never looked, he is long, he is lanky, he's 5'11", with a 69-inch reach advantage, sorry. But let's have a look at some of Max Holloway's keys to victory in this one. I I believe that Max Holloway's keys to victory in this fight are fairly straightforward. I think he needs to keep his combos short and snappy, and the reason for this is because Dustin Poirier is a killer. He, the longer the Holloway combinations are, the more chance that he's got of being caught by Dustin Poirier. He needs to keep his combinations short, 2, 3 punches, because we've seen Max. He can put long combinations to the head and to the body together in that boxing range, which he so likes. He can do that against featherweights. He can do that against, people who aren't heavy hitters. You do that against Dustin Poirier, it could be a very short night for Holloway. He needs to start quickly. He is notoriously a slower starter, Max Holloway. He needs to start quickly in this one because if he doesn't, Poirier could be 2, 3 rounds up and then Max is chasing a finish. We know he's got the power to finish at lightweight, just ask Justin Gaethje, but Max Holloway needs to start quickly in this fight if he is to get, we don't want him. We saw in their first fight, in their second fight. I'm just gonna get the stats up for the second fight. I think Dustin Poirier threw something crazy in the first round. The amount of punches Dustin Poirier threw 115 punches in the first round and landed 54. Max threw 72 punches and landed 30. So he landed 24 less punches and threw 43 less punches. That's a lot for Max Holloway, who is seen as the volume striker out of the two of these men. So that's why he needs to keep his combination short and snappy. He needs to start quickly, but he needs to control the range with kicks. Kicks to the body, teep kicks, little taps to the calf. Don't be afraid to go up high. Yes, he broke Justin Gaethje's nose with that spinning kick, but I wouldn't do any of that kind of stuff against Dustin Poirier because Dustin Poirier is much more willing to grapple than than Justin Gaethje. So I wouldn't worry too much about the sort of spinning attacks. But for Max Holloway, 3 keys to victory for me: keep the combo short and snappy, avoid getting countered, start quickly. He can't be in the first gear in the first round. He needs to start second gear in the first round. Then he can go up to third, then fourth, then fifth, and then hopefully he can maintain that high level and control the range with kicks. If he is not the bigger puncher out of the two men, Dustin Poirier is. Dustin Poirier is the man who is filled out at lightweight for much longer than Max Holloway will. And that's not to say that Max Holloway will never fill out at lightweight. And he's had 8 months in a way not making featherweight. So that will have an effect on his stature, his ability to take a shot and his ability to throw a shot. But Dustin Poirier, without a doubt, is the physically bigger man. Dustin struggles to make 155. He could probably make and be competitive at 170. That's why Max Holloway needs to control the range with his kicks. He can't stand in too close a boxing range because Dustin Poirier is as good a boxer as him, in my opinion. But also he can't stand too far out because Dustin Poirier, I'll go on to talk about it in a second, does have a lot of good, strong tools. The thing is with Holloway is he's taller than Dustin Poirier. He's 5'11", Dustin Poirier is 5'9". However, the reach that Dustin Poirier has at 72 inches is bigger than Max Holloway's. But because of the discrepancy in height, the reach advantage for Dustin Poirier they probably nullify each other. So they're going to be pretty much both going to be able to hit each other within the same range. So that's why Max Holloway needs to control the range with his kicks. Moving on to Dustin Poirier, the final fight of a 40 fight career in MMA goes down. And let's not forget, this card is made for Dustin Poirier. It's in his home, in his home state of uh, Louisiana. I couldn't remember who I was from then. It's in his home state of Louisiana. He is a career company man for the UFC. And he has fought what can only be described as one of the best who's who resumes, should we say, in UFC history. There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about it. There is no fight on there on his resume since at least since moving up to lightweight that you can question. First fight at lightweight, Diego Ferreira. Second fight, Yancy Medeiros. Then Joe Duffy. Then Bobby Green. Then Michael Johnson. Then Jim Miller. Then Eddie Alvarez. Then Anthony Pettis. Then Justin Gaethje. Then Eddie Alvarez again. Then Max Holloway. Then Khabib. Then Dan Hooker. Then back-to-back fights with Conor McGregor. Charles Oliveira, Michael Chandler, Justin Gaethje, Benoit Saint-Denis, and last time out, Islam Makhachev. You look at some of the names on that record, and it's insane. When you look at it like that, it's insane. You've got from the Michael Johnson, Jim Miller, veteran of the game, Eddie Alvarez. Although it was a no contest that fight at UFC 211, Eddie Alvarez, former UFC champion, former Bellator champion. Anthony Pettis, former UFC champion. Justin Gaethje, former, it would have been World Series of Fighting, I think, champion. Former interim champion, multiple time title challenger. Obviously, Eddie Alvarez again. Max Holloway, at the time, was the featherweight champion. Khabib, we know what Khabib's all about. Then he returns in a fight of the year contender against Dan Hooker, who is in and around the top five and has been for many a moon. Then he faces a returning Conor McGregor twice. And I believe, yeah, he's not actually taken as much time out as I thought he had between the Dan Hooker and Conor McGregor fights. But he knocks out Conor McGregor, becoming the first person to knock out McGregor in the UFC. Then he stops him, obviously, due to the broken ankle. I feel that we were robbed of what was shaping up to be a Dustin Poirier domination in that fight. But Conor McGregor, as we know, former two division champion at featherweight and lightweight. Then he goes on to face Charles Oliveira. We know all about Charles, former uh, former champion, record holder. You know all about Charles Oliveira. Michael Chandler, former Bellator champion, former, I think, interim title challenger in the UFC. All action. Justin Gaethje again. Then there was a question mark about Benoit Saint-Denis, whether Benoit Saint-Denis was going to be the man to upset Dustin Poirier. He was on an absolute tear, Saint-Denis. He was 1-5 in 1-4, 1-5, sorry, in the UFC. All of those 5 wins had come via finish. He was coming off a 1 minute 31 second knockout over Matt Frevola. And people were saying, is this going to be the changing of the guard? Is Dustin Poirier going to fail? Is he gonna be shown to is his age going to be shown in this one against Benoit Saint-Denis? Not a chance. He battered Benoit Saint Denis to a second round finish. Then he took on Islam Makhachev, and the fight was close with Islam Makhachev. It was, despite what people, yes, he was finished in that fight. He was finished in the fifth round, but it was close. I'm going to see if I can pull up the scorecards because it's probably not as close on the scorecards as I remember it. But Dustin Poirier was giving Islam Makhachev hell on the feet before Islam Makhachev managed to finish things. Um, Let me just pull up the scorecard. So obviously, like I said, the fight was stopped in the fifth round, but one of the judges had it a draw going into that fifth round, 38-38, and two of the judges had it 3-1 in favor of Makhachev. So Dustin Poirier would have needed a finish in that one if he was to win. Obviously, he was ended up being the one that was finished. But that was a much closer fight than I think people give Dustin credit for. And that's Islam Makhachev as well, who is pound for pound, I think number two in the world at the moment. But now let's look at how Dustin Poirier wins this fight. We've done Max Holloway. Now let's look at Dustin Poirier. How does Dustin Poirier win this fight? I'm going to come back to this first one. Clinch early to prevent Max finding his range. Um, I've said calf kicks to upset the rhythm. We know that Dustin Poirier is a very, very good calf kicker, as we saw against Conor McGregor in that first fight. And McGregor and Max, they are both boxing heavy style fighters. That is something that he can definitely do to Max Holloway to upset the rhythm. It's not going to have. It doesn't have to be all punches. It can be calf kicks to upset Max's rhythm, and we've seen Max is susceptible to the calf kick. It's something that Alexander Volkanovski really used in their fight. And live for the moment. Look, you're fighting in your last ever fight. You're at home. You're fighting probably in front of all of your family and friends. It's your last ever fight. You're a veteran of the sport. You're a veteran of the game. You're a guaranteed Hall of Famer. Live for the moment. Go out there and enjoy every single moment. But it's this first one that I actually want to come back to because that kind of links to the live for the moment. Live for the moment, but don't be stupid. Don't be silly. Don't risk it for the moment because Max Holloway is a phenomenal fighter, but he is a slow starter and he does struggle to get his range, find his range early. Now, if Justin put, he probably takes a round or so, Max Holloway, to find his range, to really, really find his range, that is. If Dustin Poirier can go in and clinch Max early, you know, almost big brother him, he's going to have the entire crowd on his side, Dustin Poirier. He's going to be full of adrenaline. It's his last ever walk to the octagon. I imagine he's going to be walking second. He's going to be the last fighter to walk out of UFC 318. Now, depending on the results of the other fights, this could be massive as well in favor of Dustin Poirier. If the crowd is hyped up, it could really go a long way in helping Dustin Poirier. If the crowd is a little bit flat, they're still going to get up for Dustin. But can you imagine if you'd seen maybe 3 or 4 finishes on the main card, and then Dustin Poirier walks out in his hometown? He's going to be amped up. He's going to be riled up. But in my opinion, he could just throw caution to the wind, go out there and look to just go on the full out attack and just not give Max a moment, jump on him early, prevent him from finding his range, really kind of almost try and catch Max Holloway cold. I don't think he should do that personally. It would make for a very entertaining fight, but we've seen Max up at lightweight when his back, well, not even when his back's against the wall, when he is clearly winning the fight, we've seen him throw caution to the wind, knock out Justin Gaethje in the final second of their fight at UFC 300. He can bang at lightweight, Max Holloway, so Dustin Poirier maybe doesn't want to risk it. I think Dustin Poirier should clinch early to prevent Max from finding his range. Now, the crowd, like I said, is really going to be behind Dustin Poirier. Even if he does slow the fight right down in that first round and does clinch, I don't think the crowd are going to boo him. I don't think the crowd are going to get on top of him. And I really think that well, from what I've seen and what I've heard and what I've watched and what I've listened to, I think I might be the only person that's actually telling Dustin Poirier to clinch in that first round. or at least not the whole first round, but at least the first 3 or 4 minutes. Win that first round off Max Holloway. You've got that in the bank then. Try not to take any damage, but the more that Dustin Poirier can close the range, can clinch, and can prevent Max from finding his range in that first round, the better his fight will be later on. Like I said, Max Holloway, if he's allowed to fight in the first round, he will find his range, 3, 4 minutes in, and he will begin to pick Dustin Poirier off, I think, with his slightly superior, slightly slicker boxing. However, if Dustin Poirier clinches Max Holloway, Max Holloway doesn't find his boxing range for the first 3, 4 minutes of the fight. Then he's only got a minute in that first round to flush out the lactic acid in his muscles, then to get on his boxing game and try and find that range. By which time, in my opinion, it'll be too late. 1-0 Dustin Poirier. Then Max has to start the second round as if it's the first round, as if he's there. He's now worried about the clinch, so his boxing's going to be a little bit. He's not maybe going to sit down on his shots quite as much, but he then has to find the range in the second round. Does he almost take the second round off, or does he, is he a little bit tentative in that second round, trying to find his range, trying to, pick his shots, teeps to the body? Does he find his range quickly in the second round? If he doesn't, it's 2-0 Dustin Poirier. You only need one more, and you've got a decision victory in your hometown. Now, I don't think that is how Dustin Poirier will fight this fight. I think that's how Dustin Poirier should fight this fight, in my opinion. Bank the first round in the clinch. Bank the second round by jumping on Holloway whilst he's still trying to find his range and he's a little bit tentative of the clinch potentially coming again. And then he can swing in with his boxing. Who do I think wins this fight? It's a very, very, very tough fight. The odds are near even, I think, for both fighters. I'm leaning towards Dustin Poirier, and that is only because I think that he is someone that reacts well and has big reactions to the crowd. I think it's going to be a phenomenal fight. I am leaning towards Dustin Poirier, but I do think that it's going to be close, and I do think that it's going to be competitive. But I just think that Dustin Poirier is probably going to have the edge ever so slightly on the power side of things. And if he hurts Max Holloway, or if he even rocks Max Holloway, that's when we could really see something big. As I alluded to earlier, the rest of the card doesn't particularly interest me an awful lot. Paulo Costa versus Roman Kopylov. Paulo Costa is somehow still ranked at middleweight, despite not winning since August 2022. For those that are keeping count, that's Usman versus Edward 2. I think there's been about 4 or 5 title defenses from welterweight since then. He lost to Robert Whittaker. He lost to Sean Strickland last time out. Paulo Costa burst onto the scene. There's no doubt about it. He had 4 back-to-back finish victories, including a finish over former champion Johnny Hendricks. He then took on Yoel Romero in that crazy fight. But then since losing to Israel Adesanya, he lost to Adesanya, he lost to Vettori, he beat Rockhold, he lost to Whittaker, he lost to Strickland. Now he takes on Roman Kopylov. Kopylov, again, tough start unlike Costa, sorry, tough start to his UFC career. 0-2 to his start to his UFC career. Then he put 4 wins back to back, all finishes. Then he ran into Anthony Hernandez. No shame in losing to Fluffy. One of the best fighters in the middleweight division, in my opinion. Choked out by him. But then since then, he's come back. He's beat Cesar Almeida and Chris Curtis last time out. This one's a tough one to call. I'm probably going to err on the side of Paulo Costa if he turns up on weight, if he can be bothered. If not, Kopylov, I think, probably just point fights him quite easily. This is one that I am excited for. Kevin Holland versus Daniel Rodriguez. Holland looking for his 3rd victory of the year, 4th fight in 2025. He obviously lost to Reina Derrida up at middleweight. Now he's down at welterweight. A really good win against Gunnar Nelson. And a win that seems like it was just last week against Vicente Luque. Yeah, it was on June 8th, so just over a month ago at UFC. What was that UFC? UFC 316. Really, really good activity levels by Holland. Daniel Rodriguez obviously has had an up and down UFC career. These guys were, I think, meant to fight when Chimaev just took the piss with weight, really. Um, Obviously that never went ahead. Now they are set to fight again. He lost three back to back. Neil Magny, Ian Gary, and Calvin Gastelum. Dropped back down to welterweight, beat Alex Morono and Santiago Ponzinibbio last time out by finish. So that is a big victory for D-Rod. I am picking Kevin Holland. I do like Kevin Holland. I want to see Kevin Holland stay at welterweight. Uh, we've got Dan Ige versus Patricio Pitbull. I mean, it's a good fight. I don't mind the fight at all. But there's nothing that Pitbull showed me in his first fight that actually gets me excited for this one. He froze in the moment of the UFC, and for someone with such a strong Bellator record, that surprised me. Dan Ige is going to test him. Granted, Pitbull did go in there against Yair Rodriguez, probably next in line, maybe for a title shot. So it's tough, but Dan Ige is going to test him. He's going to test that chin. He's a lot heavier hitter with his hands than than Yair Rodriguez, sorry. And he is going to test him. That Andre Feely knockout still gives me shudders. The Damon Jackson knockout still gives me shudders, and that was 2 years ago. Sean Woodson, the victory against Sean Woodson last time out, he does struggle a little bit when he's put on his back. Dan Ige, Lerone Murphy was able to take him down three times. I think Bryce Mitchell took him down five times and controlled him for large periods of that fight. I think that's what Patricio Pitbull will look to do. Um, it's risky, but if he can get the fight to the floor, Patricio Pitbull, he can probably bore out a decision victory. Um, Elsewhere on the card, Kyler Phillips versus Vinicius Oliveira is a phenomenal fight at bantamweight. Michael Johnson versus Daniel Zellhuber at lightweight. It's a fun one. Not really sure why that's made the main card. Is what it is. Marvin Vettori versus Brendan Allen. They have got beef. Marvin Vettori obviously attacked by Brendan Allen after the PFL finals, I think, last year in a casino, which was weird. Um, Jimmy Crute continuing his run of the shortest retirement in history. He retired after losing to Alonzo Menderfield in 2023. He then just returned against Rodolfo Belleto. Majority decision draw in that one. He's without a win. This is surprising to me. Jimmy Crute is without a win since 2020. And you're cutting fighters like Jordan Venusic, who's 0-2, faced some of the toughest guys in the division. And Jimmy Crute is without a win, three losses, two draws. Anyway, Bruno Ferreira is on the card as well, I believe. Yep, Bruno Ferreira, 4-2. Sorry, 5-2 in the UFC, all finishes. Tune in to watch him fight. Ryan Spann's on the card, still up at heavyweight. It is what it is. And opening up the card is the only women's fight on the card. Judas versus Nicole Kalari. Um, yeah. Going head to head with the UFC is the African debut of the PFL, headlined by no African fighters. It's not like they haven't got a big name African fighter on their roster who could have headlined this fight, is it? Uh, PFL. PFL have been struggling as of late. They've got plenty of African fighters on here, which is amazing to see, and it's really unlocking a lot of doors, as it were, for African fighters to come and fight for the PFL. But to not have a PFL head Africa headlined by Francis Ngannou is, in my opinion, crazy. With that being said, headlined by Johnny Eblin and Costo Van Steenis. I'll be completely honest, I don't know a lot about Costello Van Steenis. I do know about Johnny Eblin, and I do know that he is a phenomenal fighter. Is he a fun fighter to watch? No. He's very wrestling heavy, he's very decision heavy, and he's very, for want of a better word, slow when he fights, despite only being, I think he's a middleweight. Yeah, he's a middleweight, and he's extremely slow when he fights. Um, but he's picked up some good wins. Fabian Edwards twice, Impa Kasanganay, Gegard Mousasi. You know, these guys are top guys. And Johnny Eblin has picked up those victories. He takes on Costello Van Steenis. I will have a look at his record now. Because like I say, I don't know a lot about him. I'm not really sure why he's headlining a UFC Africa card. Um, he's got a 16-3 record. 8 wins by submission, 4 wins by knockout, 3 wins by decision, and a disqualification win on there as well. Um, yeah, yeah. I mean, he's got since May 2024, he's had 48 seconds of action when he knocked out Joao Danatas on a PFL card. He lost to Douglas Lima. Um, yeah, he lost to Douglas Lima. He lost to John Salter, sorry. He beat Fabian Edwards by split decision. It's a strange one for me. And for me, this isn't the biggest. These two aren't the reason that people are going to tune in to watch this. The reason that people are going to tune in to watch this is the probably the second biggest star in the PFL behind Francis Ngannou, and that's Dakota Ditcheva. She returns after being confusingly, shall we say, not selected to participate in the flyweight tournament. Dakota Ditcheva does return. You know, she's the reigning PFL flyweight champion. There's no doubt about it. She's 14-0. She's still 26 years old. She's got 12 wins by KO, 1 win by submission, and a decision victory on there. Her PFL career has been shockingly good. I was there for her debut against Hasna Gaber, who quit in there against her. Since then, she's got finish, 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 finish. And you know, competing on the PFL Europe card, you can understand why these finishes are coming. She was levels above, Skititzi and Cornella Horn. But then when she stepped into the regular season, Chelsea Hackett, she's a well-rounded fighter, I guess. Chelsea Hackett, Jenna Bishop, different kind of fighter to the fighters that Dakota's been facing before. And then Talia Santos, former UFC title challenger, Talia Santos, I believe. Really, really good fighter. Now I feel she's taken a step back. She's taking on Sumiko Inaba. Apologies if I got that wrong. She's yeah, she's just not going. She's 8-1, and she's 34 years old. She only turned professional in 2020. As ridiculous as it sounds, she's just not going to beat Dakota Ditcheva. This is just not going to be a competitive fight for Dakota Ditcheva, which it should be. Dakota needs to be. For me, I'm going to speak to. Well, I'm going to be at the on the virtual press conference for the PFL tomorrow, and I'm going to ask the question to Dakota Ditcheva. Look, what motivates you against a level of opposition which is seemingly lower than what you've been fighting before? Um, and what is the next challenge? Do you want to fight Liz Carmouche, who is seemingly the fighter that everybody wants to see you in there against? AJ McKee returns. Strange, he lost to Paul Hughes by split decision last time out. He takes on Ahmed Magomedov, who is coming off a victory against Nathan Kelly. Um, Again, no African fighters on the main card so far. We've got Zainukov versus Izumi. I don't know anything about those two fighters. And we got Corey Anderson versus Denis Goltsov, which is a weird fight to have opening up the main card of the of PFL Africa. It's Corey Anderson's last fight was for the vacant light heavyweight championship of Bellator. Now he's facing Goltsov at heavyweight. Goltsov is the tournament champion, I believe, of the heavyweight tournament. I don't know. PFL's too confusing for me. I don't know. But that goes down this weekend. We also have, which I'm not going to really talk, well, I'm not going to talk about at all. I'm just going to mention it. We have Alexander Usyk versus Daniel Dubois. First time in the four belt era that the undisputed heavyweight championship is being defended on British soil, which is really, really exciting. Obviously, they have fought before. Daniel Dubois landed the low blow that stopped things in the middle of the fight for a long period of time, and then was finished. I believe it was in the ninth or maybe the 10th round. He was getting comprehensively beaten in that fight, but he's still gonna claim that he finished Usyk with a body shot and it wasn't a low blow. He is off the back of that victory over Anthony Joshua. Alexander Usyk, obviously, off the back of two victories against Anthony Joshua and two victories against Tyson Fury. So that one's going to be phenomenal. That goes down from Wembley Stadium on Saturday night. But we're back. We're back with the MMASucka podcast. We're back talking about fighting. We're back breaking down fights. It's what we do. I'll be back next week to break down UFC 318, Dustin Poirier's last ever fight. Can he pull off the fairy tale finish? A lot of times, this sport doesn't allow for fairy tale finishes, but we shall see. And I will be previewing the UFC's return to Abu Dhabi that is headlined by Robert Whittaker and Renier de Ridder. We've got Petr Yan on there. We've got Bryce Mitchell. We've got Shara Bullet. We've got Nikita Krylov. Got plenty of fighters to break down, but that's one for next week. I've been Frazer Krohn. Thanks for listening. Drop in the comments below what you want to see on the podcast next. Maybe not next week, but I will look to put some things in place. Thank you for listening. Like the video, and I'll catch you next time.